This week's edition of Church Media Design TV is sponsored by Print Management Solutions. Welcome to this week's edition of Church Media Design TV, tips, tricks, and how-to for you, the church media designer. I'm your host, Brad Zimmerman, and I'm joined by my favorite bobble-headed friends. You got it right. We got Sean and Gus from Psych. Season finale the other day. Very sad. I wish the show wasn't done for the year. We got Little Whitey, Colonel Sanders, and of course, Jesus Christ, the Son of the Lord Most High. Well, on this week's edition of Church Media Design TV, we're going to be talking about Easter. We're going to be talking about how to create a Easter motion graphics package that you can use for Easter or for, I guess, any other series. It's kind of generic, and it's based off some inspiration I've had from a TV ad lately. So I'm going to walk us through how to create that. As well as I want to let you guys know that CMD has gone HD. Yes, we've always been recording with an HD camera, but we've never really outputted to HD, and now we are. So you can get the podcast in its full HD glory so that you can see, you know, all sorts of weird stuff. Not really weird stuff. You can see the screencast clearer, you can see me clearer, you can see the bobbleheads clearer. It's all in HD. So make sure to check that out. You can find that on the website, ChurchMediaDesign.tv/subscribe, and you can find links to subscribe to the HD podcast. So, all that to say, if my bobbleheaded friends are ready, let's get into it. Well, let's reach into the stockpile and grab you guys some great resources, and the first one is the new Church Marketing Directory. Now, this is a great directory of all sorts of things. It's put out by the Center for Church Communications, which are the people behind ChurchMarketingSucks.com and the Church Marketing Sucks Labs on Flickr and all sorts of great stuff. So anyway, you can check this out. There's administrative, design, all sorts of multimedia, great different stuff. And so if we pull up some of these categories, you'll see, you know, you got Already Been Chewed by Barton Damer, and you got all sorts of different sites on here. We got CMD TV here, as well as, you know, Daydocs and Igniter and all sorts of different great resources that you can check out. So make sure to check out the Church Marketing Directory. Now the next one is for those of you working with motion graphics and you kind of have just picked up After Effects, or you've just decided to, you know, get into motion design. A lot of us don't have the not theology, but the, you know, the book smarts behind what it takes to do this stuff. So this is a great write-up from Nope.com, and it's Motion Graphics and 2D Animation, 10 Tips for a Clean Workflow. So it just talks about storyboarding, naming, all sorts of different stuff, as well as, you know, how to make things go better for you in the long run. So if you're working on a big project, or you're working on a project that's continual, so maybe you're doing announcement videos every single week, this will help you get your workflow down so it doesn't waste your time when you're working on these projects. So check that article out. And the last one is the 5-part Blender Survival Guide. If you're wanting to get into 3D motion, 3D graphics and 3D design, but don't have the money for Cinema 4D or Maya or 3D Studio Max, Blender.org is a free 3D app. It's full on. You can do amazing stuff with it, but it's not the most user-friendly a lot of the times, and, you know, it's made by programmers. So you can get stuff done, but sometimes it's a little weird. So there's a 5-part series over at the Creative Cow that is worth checking out. So check out 5-part series on Blender, 10 tips for motion design from Nope.com, and the Church Marketing Directory from the Center for Church Communications. Well, before we move on, let's say thank you to our sponsor, which is Print Management Solutions. If you have a print need, they have your solution, and you can find out more about their services at printmanagementsolutions.biz. And there's all sorts of great stuff. You can get a full service program, leasing program, wholesale ink and toner, the whole 9 yards. And if you send them a message, they'll make sure to get the right package for you and your church. So it may be a new printer that's going to take care of all of your current needs and do it for a lot cheaper. But we've been using this service for years. It's saved us so much money. It's basically cut our print budget in half of what we would be spending if we just went to Staples or a big box store. So make sure to check it out. Sign up. There's a sign up link on the site, and in there you can put in the promo code of Church Media Design, and they'll take care of you, and you'll help us out by checking them out. So check out Print Management Solutions. Well, I'm excited to share this with you for the second time because I just shot the whole tutorial segment without hitting record on the screencast. So all you would have seen is me looking at the computer talking the whole time. Luckily, I'm going to do it again for you. So let's get into it. Hopefully, since I've taught it all once before, it'll all come back nice and smooth and much faster the second time. So we're going to be talking about making a Easter film grain-ish looking video project. So you'll be able to, throw your title on there, but also it'll be loopable, so it can be a motion background if you want it to be. And you can use it for Easter, but it's not really Easter-ish, so you could use it for any series you want or any video project you want. And this was inspired off a Ford ad that I've been seeing lately, and at the end they have this, film grain stuff going on and kind of this jittery look to it, and I really wanted to figure out how to do this. So check out this ad and see what I'm talking about.
Cool thing about this is equipped with Sirius radio, like so many different genres. There's something like 200 channels. You could listen to Korean news.
So as you could see in the ad, they had a lot of different, colors coming in and some grain and a little jitter to it, and it felt a little old and vintagey. I don't understand why it's a Ford ad that only talks about Sirius radio, but we're not going to get into that. So check out what I created as a result. This is my Easter Everything Changes, and you can see we got some colors coming on, and this isn't very big, so let's zoom this up and make it so it's a little easier to see. So you can see, you got some colors, and there's some grain going on here, and again, I don't call this perfect. I call this an experiment that I hope turns out kind of cool. So let's get into making this ourselves. So let's make a new project here, and let's start out first off by making a new composition. We'll call this our master comp, and this will be at 30 frames per second. It's much easier to loop when you're doing 30 frames versus drop frame 29.97 or all of that crap, and we're doing full HD. And now let's right click in our composition and let's do a new solid, and we're going to call this our 1280x720 comp. And so this will be our widescreen comp, and we're just going to make it black, and we're going to reuse this over and over again. So we'll leave this one, and we'll name this guy our background. So we'll just name that there, and then let's drag a new one in, and this is going to be our blue orbs. So we're going to do this via fractal noise. Fractal noise can be used for so many different things. We're going to build that entire video you saw out of fractal noise for the most part. Every single layer is going to be fractal noise. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go to noise and grain, and we're going to pull up fractal noise, and then we're going to actually skip that, and we're going to go to expression controls, and we're going to make a slider control. And we'll hit 1. And in a previous show, I talked about how to loop fractal noise. I'm going to quickly go through that process, but basically the gist of it, you can look back. It's looping backgrounds fractal noise effect is the name of the episode. But the gist of it is we're going to use a slider to control how often or how much looping is going on, and then the loop is based on the length of the bar in your timeline, the layer bar in your timeline. So let's just do some linking here. So let's hit E to pull up our effects, and then fractal noise. We're going to go down to our evolution options. We're going to tell it to cycle. So now it's going to set to loop. Then we're going to alt click on our cycle, and we're going to pick whip up to the slider control. We're going to name this evolution amount. And then in our evolution, we're going to alt-click on that, and we're going to paste in this code right here, and I will have this on the website. So we'll paste this in. I forgot a ending. Okay, so now you can see as we roll through, we do almost one full perfect rotation, but if we hit home and end, it's looping right back around to the beginning. So our job is done with that, and to save us some time during this project, we're actually going to make an animation preset. This is really easy to do. We're going to take all of the different things we want to make into our animation preset. We're going to go to Animation, Save Animation Preset. You can see I've already created this looped fractal noise, so I'm not really going to save it right now, but that's how you create it. So if I would go in here and delete these effects, and so all I have is a black layer with blue orbs, I'm going to pull up my effects and presets, and under animation presets, user presets, there's looped noise, and I'm just going to drag that down to my blue orbs layer, and you can see it's created looped fractal noise for me. So now what we're going to do is mess around with how this fractal noise looks. So I'm going to set my complexity down to 1. You can see the difference between 1 and 10. It's basically how much detail is in my fractal noise. I don't want hardly any detail in my fractal noise. Then I'm going to take my transform and I'm going to scale this way up. So I'm going to scale this maybe to, 800 some. Then I'm going to mess around with my contrast and brightness and just get something so we just have a little bit of something going on in the background. I also can mess around my transform, and I'm just going to move where this is. So let's move so we're right about here, because I want to get rid of as much of the black downtime, you could call it, as possible. So maybe I'll bring up my contrast a little bit more, and you can see we're starting to get a nice effect there. Now I'm going to colorize this by going to, I'm right clicking, I'm going to generate fill, and this fill color we're going to make our blue tone, and we'll figure out what blue we like the most later, but for now we'll just go with that. I'm going to pull this above all my other effects, and then in fractal noise I'm going to set the blending mode to multiply, and so now you can see it's letting some of that show through. And if I would mess around with my contrast, I can let a little bit more of the, pull my brightness down. You can start to see some more black in there, and we can scrub through this, and let's go to like this frame and make sure that we don't have too much showing. So that's looking, it's looking pretty good. We got a little bit of, it's kind of banding out there and showing a little bit too much, or it's just solid color and there's not enough of a ramp to it, but we'll be okay with that for now. And then let's just change our color and find something that's a little bit more of a hazy, vintagey blue tone. So let's mess around and find something we like. We'll go with that for now. So that's our background, and that's the gist of it, and that's, basically our whole deal. So I'm gonna real quickly just mess around with my position and see if I can find a position I like better for this whole thing, and maybe we need to scale up a little bit more, because I don't like that it leaves the frame. So we'll that's looking pretty okay. And then let's maybe scale up just a little bit more and pull down. So now we just have a little bit of subtle motion going on in the background. Very, very subtle. So now let's make the film grain, and this again, we're going to go back to our project panel, pull down one of these widescreen comps, and we'll slap on some looped fractal noise. Again, time savers, makes it much faster. We'll call this our whoops. This will be our spots. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to just mess around with the contrast so that we just get a few of these little spots all over the place. And I only want just a subtle couple of them because I'm going to turn up my evolution amount to like 10 for this. So it's going to loop a lot more of these and see how they're showing up. And they're showing up pretty fast. So that's looking pretty nice. We maybe want a few less of them. So again, I'm just going to keep pulling back on my brightness to get rid of more of them. And then I'm going to throw this spots layer into a screen blending mode. And that will get rid of all of the black but leave all the white. And so you can see that we got some little spots going on here and there, and we got our little orbiness going on in the background. So I think it's looking pretty okay right now. So what we can do next is make those little lines that you see sometimes. So again, we're gonna go and grab one of these, slap on our looped fractal noise, and we'll call this our lines. And our lines, what we want to do is we actually want to take our transform properties and we want to unlink uniform transforming, and we're going to take our width and pull it way down so it's real small, down to 1, and we're going to scale this guy all the way up to 600. And then again, we'll mess around with our brightness and contrast so that we just get a few little lines here and there. And you can see there's a few faint ones there. I'll maybe kick up my contrast a little bit more. Kick down my brightness, just so we have just a couple subtle lines, and you can see them move around. And then let's turn this way up to, let's say, 20. So these are going to be moving around, and they're going to be moving fast. But I don't want to just see these things. I want to see these things kind of simulate moving up and down and around the frame a little bit more than what's going on right now. It seems a little too still, and it's a little too consistent. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to pull up another looping effect. So I'm going to go back, and you can find all of these at Motion Script, but this is a looping wiggle. So this is the wiggle effect, which moves things around randomly, but it loops it. And again, I cover this in my looping background series that you can find on the website. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to go to our transform property, and we're going to take this offset turbulence. I'm going to alt-click on that, and I'm going to paste our looping wiggle in there. I'm going to set our loop time to 30. I'm going to set our amount up to like 400 and our frequency up to like 5. So now you can see that it, let's turn up our brightness just so you can see it a little bit better, and then we'll turn it down more later. But you can see how it's just kind of throwing it all around, and maybe we want to make it bigger than 400. Maybe we want to make it like 800. So now it's jumping all over the place and giving it a really random feel. And then again, let's throw this into a screen blending mode. And you can see how it looks really bright. So first thing I'm going to do is, knock down my contrast and pull back my brightness just a touch. So we just have a few streaks here and there. And so you can see those coming all over the place. Now what we're actually going to do is take that same looping wiggle, and we're going to loop our opacity. So plug this into my opacity. Just going to hit the tilde key, and that'll bring this up full so you guys can see this. So we'll take our loop time and set that to 30 seconds, and then our amplitude we want to be 100 because we want to be able to go from 0 to 100 in opacity. And then our frequency we'll do maybe 5 times a second. I'm going to pull this all the way down to 0, or maybe like 20% as my starting amount, and then it will randomly add in some lines here and there as we go. So you can see that they kind of show up, and let's take this same deal and put that on our spot. So we'll pull up our transparency, alt or option click on the opacity, transparency, opacity, all the same thing. And we'll change our frequency maybe in here to 2, and we'll pull this all the way down to 0, and Now we just have some more randomness, so it's not doing it too much, and we can always pull it back up. Set our starting maybe to 40 for this one so that we can see it more often because they don't show up quite as much. But as you can see, if we do a little RAM preview of the first 5 seconds, I'm just going to knock this down to half quality. I'm doing Shift 0 on my number pad. That renders every other frame. And you can see we have, a nice amount of randomness, and our spots really need to get moving. So let's randomly move our spots as well. So let's pull up our transform property, offset turbulence, and paste that in there. I am getting the full use of these 2 looping functions, looping fractal noise and looping wiggle, and I'm going to make it work for me. So now if we loop this, you can see our fractal noise jots around the screen a bit more and looks a little bit more like a film texture would look. So now that we got those, now let's get those orbs of color coming in the screen, and this uses a little bit different of a process, but it'll still be a lot of the same stuff. So as you guessed, we're going to take one of our solids here, and we're going to apply our fractal noise, our looped noise effect to it. And we're going to set our complexity down to 1, and we're going to take our transform and make it really big. And then we're going to mess around with our contrast so that we get just a little bit of, some small spots going on here and there. So we can loop around, and you'll see that we get a little bit going on. And then we'll take and put our amount up to like 20. So now we have a bunch more movement, and it's a lot more random all over the place. And we could even move our position offset so that so we get some more craziness going on. And that looks pretty good. But what we need to do is we need to pre-compose this layer. So we're going to go to Layer and then to Pre-compose. And we're going to call this Orange Orbs. And in here, we're going to take another one of these black solids, and we're going to do a track matte. We're going to do a Luma matte. And what that does is it makes true transparency out of this. So it uses the luminance values of this layer to set transparency based on the color of the other layer, which ends up looking like this if you didn't grasp all of that. So let's go back to our master comp, and we're going to take our orange orbs, and it's already in there, but we're going to colorize those orange orbs. So we're going to do a fill. We're going to set this to an orangey color, and then we're going to mess around with our modes here, and I'm just doing shift and plus and minus, and that's going to go through all my different blending modes. And the one that I think looks the nicest is screen mode here. And you can see it kind of makes it feel like it's real light and faint, but it looks like it's kind of burning onto the screen. And then let's mask this out. Now we could have done the fill color the same way as we did the other ones, but the problem we would have ran into is when we added this mask here, because masks get added after all of your other effects, and so it did some weird things to the color when I was testing this out. So that's why we're doing it in this order here. So what we're going to do is layer, mask, new mask, or it's Control-Shift-N. We're going to double click on this mask and hit the control key. We'll just scale this into the center here, and then we'll set that. We're going to hit MM on our keyboard, and we're going to switch from add to subtract, and then we'll do pixels of a feather of like 150, and that'll give us a nice smooth feather. Then we can actually contract this so it's just along the edges. So now when those go on, you can see they're just kind of lighting up the edge of the screen there. So I like how that looks. I think it looks pretty authentic. Let's do a RAM preview a second and just make sure it's moving fast enough, because we don't want it to be too slow. and they are moving a little bit slow. So let's go into our orange orbs. Let's change our amount here to like 30, so that'll speed up how fast those are moving around. And then let's go and do a looped wiggle of the opacity on here. So we'll set this frequency to, let's say, 7 and amplitude of 100, and we'll start this at 0. And now you'll see that it kind of comes on and flickers away pretty fast, and you know, we got a nice subtle effect. So now let's just duplicate this and do this a couple more times. So I'm going to duplicate this pre-comp, name it pink, and inside, we'll go inside this pink orbs comp, and we're going to go into a little part of the evolution options called random seed. I'm just going to change this. You could change it to 1, and all it does is randomly changes the seed value for the fractal noise, so it doesn't look exactly the same as that other one. And then we'll go back to our master comp, and what I'm going to do to save myself some time is I'm going to duplicate this orange orbs layer, and then I'm going to alt drag the pink orbs on top of it. And so what it did is it saved my blending modes, it saved my my expression for the transparency, and saves me some time. And then I can just alter it. So the pink orbs, I don't want the mask on. I want this to be wherever it needs to be on the frame. So that's just going to be all over the place. And then let's take our transparency and let's have our starting value be 10. So it's just going to be a little brighter when it's on the screen. And it's looking pretty cool. You got some random just little jots here and there. And now let's do this one last time with a yellow. So I'm going to again duplicate this. We're going to call this yellow orbs, and we will bring this down in here. Let's do like we did before. Let's duplicate the pink orbs, alt drag the yellow orbs on top, pull up our transparency. Let's set this one back to 0. And then let's change our effects control of our color to a yellow tone. And then we actually need to change this pink orbs to a pink color. I didn't do that. And then let's go into our yellow orbs and change our random seed value. So effect, evolution options, random seed, and let's just put in 7 because I like the number 7. And then we'll go back to our master comp, and you can see we got some flashes of color coming in here. That's our yellow, and we got some pink in there, and just a lot of different stuff going on. And let's mess around with this yellow one, and let's turn the contrast down just a little bit on this so that it's a little fainter when it comes on. So we're just going to pull that back even more so you can see like that's the brightest it gets. So let's go to like that being the brightest. So now when we go to our master, we don't get quite so much yellow coming on, but it's still there. So now we have some really random colors and movement and all of that stuff, but we really need some real texture to it all. So what I did is I went over to the website lostandtaken.com, and they have tons of great textures, and they have these 11 old grungy film textures. And I liked this number 11 because it was pretty consistent across the board as far as color range goes, but it still has got a lot of those telltale film grain look to it. So what we'll do is we'll import that, and I'm just going to do it by dragging this 11 into After Effects, and it should show up right in our project panel there for us. So that's another way that you can bring that stuff in. And now let's scale this down. Whoops. Let's scale this down. And let's change our blending mode. So shift plus or minus, and let's find a blending mode that we think looks nice for it. Now, screen looks okay, but I think I want to go with overlay, which gets rid of all of the grays but leaves all of your pure white and pure black. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to color correction and I'm going to do levels on this so that I can alter my alter the look of it. So I'm going to make those blacks more punchy, makes the whites more punchy, you know, mess around with my gray value here. And then what we'll do is we'll take our transparency and bring our transparency down. So it's just faintly in there, you know, maybe 20-some%. And we could scale this up a little bit more if we wanted and move it around. And then let's go back to our blue orbs and change our fill color so it's just a touch darker. It's a little too bright for my liking right now. And then let's add the old vignette effect to bring it all together. So we're going to right click and do new adjustment layer, or you can always go to layer, new adjustment layer. And we're going to do color correction curves on this. Just going to bring the curves way down. And then we're going to double click on our circular or our ellipse tool and set it to subtract. Going through this kind of fast because I've done it before. To pull up our mask properties, do a feather of, let's say, 150. And expansion, just pull it out just a little bit so it's just burning in those edges there. Maybe make this 200 so it's really feathered. And now let's just give it a quick preview. So now we got our colors coming in and we got our lines popping around and it's actually looking kind of cool. It's looking pretty good so far. But the one thing that it doesn't have is it's not shaking quite like that other one was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a camera and make the camera shake everything. So we're going to right click, new camera, we're going to do 35mm. Then we're going to add in a new null object. We're going to make this null object a 3D object, and we're going to link our camera to the null object. Then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to set everything except our adjustment and background layer to 3D. And then we are going to apply our looping wiggle to the position of this null object, because the null object is in control of the camera. So when you move the null object, it moves the camera. So we'll alt-click on the position, we'll paste in our loop, and let's take a look at this. So right now it's a 30-second loop, but the amplitude is like 100. I only want it to be 10, but I want it to do it pretty often. So let's go to like, I don't know, 4 or 7. No, let's do 4. So it's only going to move 10 pixels, but it's going to do it 4 times a second. So we'll check that out, and you can see that now it's kind of jittering it around a little bit. But you can see we run into a problem that you can see the outside of the frame. So all I'm going to do is hit C on my keyboard to pull up my camera properties, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. And now if we do our RAM preview, this is every other frame at half quality, so it'll go a little bit faster for us. But we've kind of combined all those things down into one to make what I think is a pretty decent film texture. And the final touch is to add our text in. So I'm going to use Tahoma regular, and we'll just type in Easter. And as you can see, when I add in new layers, if I would delete this layer, watch this, delete, watch the video there. That color comes back up because the randomness is based on layer how many layers are in your composition. And so sometimes you can find the perfect thing and then add in a new layer, and all of a sudden your fractal noise looks different. So keep that in mind. So Easter, everything changes. And let's make Easter a lot bigger. And just take this and move it over to the side. And then we'll make that 3D and maybe move it back just a little bit. Further away it is from the camera, the less it's going to shake around. The closer it is, the more it will shake around. So I'm just going to move it back just a little bit. And now if we do our RAM preview of this, Shift 0, you'll see that we got our little flashes going on. We could add some motion blur to the text so it gets blurry when it moves around, but I think it's actually looking pretty nice, and overall it's a good effect. There might be a little bit too much there, but at the end of the day, I think it looks pretty right. And then if we hit, just to finalize, if we hit home and end, you will see we have a perfect loop going on here. So everything looks the same. You know, we got some splotches that are moving around, but they're just moving that fast. That is a perfect loop. So you could strip the text out and just have it loop, or you could keep the text in there and you got your perfect loop. So you can download that project file from the website, as well as find all of the links to the expressions and the whole 9 yards, as well as I'll have links to 2 real pieces of film grain footage that I found online when I was searching for this stuff. So if you don't want to take the time, or you don't have After Effects and you just have a video editor, you could take this film grain and add it into your footage. So that's how to make some film grain for your Easter project or whatever it may be. So check it out. Well, this week's inspiration comes to you from avclub.us, Ken Wilson from New Spring Church. They just had the New Spring Unleashed Conference 2010, and he did a breakout there, and I thought it was really cool. What he did is he actually walked through in this breakout how to do church media on a really tight budget with really crappy stuff. And so he showed, here's how to make a video promo with a Flip Minnow HD camera and some editing software. And so no motion graphics and all that kind of stuff. So I thought this was a really creative use, and I thought I'd pass this along to you guys, as this is what you can do. You just got to think outside the box. You don't have to have After Effects. You don't have to have all of these tools to create something interesting. You can draw it on paper and play it in reverse. Well, I don't want to take away all the secrets, so check this out. This week's freebie, as you can see, is the vintage film grain background. So you can use this, and maybe it's more of an upbeat song or something like that. So you can download this in widescreen and in full screen. And forgive me because I'm a little behind on posting some of these, but hopefully they'll all be up in the next couple days here. So check it out and download it today. Well, thanks for tuning in to another edition of Church Media Design TV. One thing I'm really excited to tell you guys about, been holding back this whole episode. You may have heard rumors about it on my Twitter feed, but there is the first annual CMD Film Festival. Now, you heard it right. We're having a film festival. I'm lining up sponsors. There's going to be prizes for first place in all 6 categories. We have announcement videos, motion backgrounds, series intro, series package, which is still and blank background for a series layout. We have mini movie or sermon illustration, and there's event promotion. So there's 6 different categories, and I've split them into 2 different divisions, one for small and large church. So if your church is under 1,000 people, you won't be competing against those who work for churches over 1,000 people. So I wanted to bring in a lot of different stuff so that you guys can get inspired by what's being made in churches across the country, and at the same point win some great stuff for your church. So there's a ton of cool prizes, and I'll have more details to come, but I wanted to let you guys know about it so you guys can look back through some of the stuff you've done over the past year or 2 years or whatever. Next year there won't be any resubmissions of old stuff, but you can submit your work and it will be voted on by the audience, and I'm just super excited about the film festival. So there'll be more details to come, but I wanted to let you guys know about it. You can start telling friends and get ready for the film festival. It's gonna be awesome. Okay, psyched about that. Also, if you guys have any questions or comments, you can send me an email, brad@ChurchMediaDesign.tv. Find me on Twitter, twitter.com/CMDTV, facebook.com/bradley.zimmerman, vimeo.com/CMDTV. And we will be switching over the video player to Vimeo in the very near future here. Probably this coming week's episode will be posted via Vimeo, so I have made that transition, and that will be going forward in the future. Make sure to go to ChurchMediaDesign.tv/subscribe to get the HD version of the podcast if you want that, or to subscribe to any version. It's just great to have you guys subscribe, and it just comes to you every week and makes life a lot easier. So, and you can also subscribe to the website and all that stuff. So that's all on there, as well as check out giftcardgiver.com. I got this t-shirt from giftcardgiver.com. They are a company, a really cool company. You take old gift cards with small amounts on it and give it to them, and they put all of those resources together to help buy stuff for people in need. So if you got 15 cents left on a Kohl's gift card, you add it to everybody else who's got 15 cents left, and all of a sudden somebody gets brand new pants or whatever. That sounded like a joke. I promise it wasn't, because this is actually a really great service. So check out giftcardgiver.com, and all the other links and all the other stuff will be on the website. So as for me and my bobbleheaded friends, we're saying see you later.